All right. Hello, everyone. I'm going to go over the data set. I think I'm just going to do this in detail, so it'll be for whoever ends up jumping in on this. I'll do it for a little bit to explain what all these tabs and columns mean. So for those that are just using the data set or trying to interpret it, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail for those that have editing privileges, that best way to edit. So this first tab right here is presence absence. I guess I should start off by saying that when this video was made, it's August 31st, 2020. So that was the last update for this data set. So the first one says presence absence MVA. And so for this one, this is basically all the recovery units. So it goes, as you scroll down, right, it's recovery unit 1, 2, all the way through 6, the name of the recovery unit, county, and then the names of the sites. These are all sites that either have currently or historically had Tidewater gobies, or sites that we have surveyed for possible, interest in Tidewater gobies, reintroductions, or just recently surveyed because they're close by another site or whatnot. So these definitely aren't all the sites throughout the coast, but I think there's 286 of them. All right. Management units. These are all from the recovery plan. So management unit number, management subunit number, management site number, and then coastal group number. These are the ones that we gave for the MVA, metapopulation viability analysis. So these have been adjusted for the new subunits or metapopulations that we slightly amended from the recovery unit, right? Total records, everything in this orange section is automatically updates, so you should not type anything in here directly. This calculates the number of records, total presence, and then percent occupied. And we have that essentially going from 1857, which is the first record. I think it's up in Petaluma River, to present. So you'll see a lot of blank space. And then once we start getting to like 80s, 90s, when Cam did all his surveys, to present, you can see that we don't have a lot of what's going on in the North Coast since 2014. So we need to update that. And then, I didn't do any surveys in 2019 or 2020. My last survey that I did coastwide was 2017 to 2018. So I did half the coast fall of 2017, and then the other half kind of like January, February of 2018. So these are basically what we did. Why it's the MVA. This needs to be binary. So it's either a 0 or a 1. If there was a site, let's say that, for example, this is San Mateo, not a good example. Let's just say Las Flores has had a couple times where people go out and it's present, and then the same year they go out and it's absent. We mark that as present that year, whether there's absences or not. If as long as it's present, it gets a 1 for that year for the MVA. And so that so we needed to just be binary for this one. There's some other data that we did in here, which I'll update once we go through and are confident that all the data sets are, most of the data is in. These are sites occupied by Cam Swift et al. 1988 paper, which was used primarily for the listing. So Cam I know you'll be watching this video. It'd be great if you can double check that. These were sites occupied by recovery plan listed in their recovery plan or not occupied. And then these are all new sites. I have to update this that we've found since 2005. So these were not listed in the recovery plan. So this is like Carpenter Creek, Meadow Creek, Cicate, things like that, Sycamore Canyon. And then these are extirpated sites. So I need to update those sites with no record of occupancy. So you'll see a lot of these sites have no record of occupancy, but they're still listed. So that's what these are. I'll go through and update those. It automatically on the bottom too. So if you put a 1 or a 0 in any of these, it'll update everything in the orange columns for you. So it'll update the percent occupied, total records. You can see here. So like, you know, Aliso Canyon down south, we have 23 records. You know, in San Mateo, we have 28 records total. And then it gives it actually a number of presence and absence per year on the bottom. So there's not a lot up until like the 70s, 80s, and then you'll start to see 75. Cam did a bunch of stuff there. So there's 67 records. I think the most we have is one of the years I went up and down the coast and we have 137, 111. So that's the gist of this presence absence MVA. This presence absence tab next to it is exactly the same, other than we don't have to have a binary. So these blue cells that have 0 and 1 are those sites that had both a present and an absence. So this is just for visual representation. If someone wants to know, you know, was that site present, presumed present all year, or, you know, sites like these, Hidden, French, Cocklebur, a lot of those sites, Kevin would go out and survey, and if they didn't get present, they would get a 0. Then they go back out a couple months later in like what, September, October, something like that, and then maybe they found them. So that would get a 0 or 1. But other than that, everything else, you can see sites like Malibu for a long time, from 2012 to 2018, it was hit or miss. There's many times it got 0 absences and presence because Rosie was doing, I think, quarterly surveys. So that's those 2 tabs. Main Coast, these are a list of the sites, a lot of the same information. It has lat longs, both DMS lat longs and decibels lat longs that can be used for a variety of purposes. We did this pretty quickly. We actually have this information. Cami and Marcus and a couple of Dave's other undergrad students have helped get a lot of these site characteristic information down. That includes slope and things like that. So we'll update that. It'll be important to get those in. But these are some things that will be included in this database, as well as just general habitat characteristics, min, max habitat size, distance to nearest neighbor to the north-south. Detection probability will probably be removed, put somewhere else. Then we'll probably have like slope and a couple other things. I forgot what they did. Then it jumps into these tabs. These are all, so these 6 tabs are all the same. They're just separated by recovery unit. So North Coast, Greater Bay, Central Coast, Conception, LA Ventura, and South Coast. This is the only one you can see up here is Southern Tidewater Goby. The rest of them will be Northern Tidewater Goby, but all the columns are exactly the same. I'll just do the North Coast now because it has the least amount of data to go through. But again, so this is set up so you could input this into R. It has the format, so we, you know, that for, I guess, the purpose of this video, we're not going to be doing anything like that. But when publishing the database, we're really just going to be doing these California locality information. So site records, this is the site, county again, lat long, those decibels, recovery unit, North Coast management unit number. These are all just different ways that sometimes makes it easier to do some statistics on them. Management site number, and then these are coastal order numbers, north to south, and then coastal order. So those are populations and site. What's different between those are there's some sites that we are including as separate sites that that so they would, so for instance, like in the conception unit, if you go down, Pismo and Carpenter Creek are separate sites, right? So they get Pismo and Carpenter Creek have, you know, this one's A and B, but they're the same population because they connect at numerous times, right? Meadow Creek and Arroyo Grande, so that's A and B, but they're the same population. So we have a number of those sites throughout the coast that we need to be aware of that, and these are just different ways of classifying those. Mission and Laguna in Santa Barbara is the same. Goleta, Slough, there's all these different creeks that we're cataloging as separate sites that feed into it because that's, you know, so we can keep track of all the surveys, but they're all considered the same population. So that's the California localities, just management info, site info, and then it gets into survey. So we'll have actual collection date. This is done 3 different ways. Sometimes some records have specific dates. Sometimes we just have records of like month and year, or just year. Like, so for example, this one in Pismo that was done by, I'm not sure who RBR is was only 1975, right? So these are just different dates. I just added this. So for those that are editing, note that this is changed from the previous databases. This is collection method. I'll go over the key lastly, because there's a last tab that has keys. But collection method, so this would be like saying eDNA, I think I have DIP or PushNet, visual surveys, or other traps or something like that. So that'd be a categorical variable. Collection times, we're doing military time. We need to clean these up. Some of them have colon, some of them don't. So we just need to streamline that. Collection season, I just broadly put them into 4 different seasons, and that's in the keys. Collection numbers, I think really just Cam and I have collection numbers, maybe a few other individuals, but those are recorded here. ENU collected, I'll actually change this. This is like specimens. So those are this is the number that we actually took and are preserved in the repository. So that's not what actually was collected out in the site. That's a different a different tab. Collector's initials, everyone has a 3, most of us have a 3-letter initial code. So me, there's Cam Swift, Doug Rishbeater. Some people, it just has 2, but we can update that if needed. Present or absent, total number of SAN halls, which we're trying to get into this database if we can. A lot of times people didn't record that. So number of halls, then number of halls with Tidewater gobies. This is so we can do a crude estimate of detection probability. This is where the total number of Tidewater gobies collected. So sometimes there's an actual number, sometimes it's just thousands plus, 50 plus, whatever. We'll just put a number there. We don't want to put any pluses or minuses. in there. We'll just put whatever number is in the um, the reports. Tidewater Goby status. This is just a categorical variable. Again, it'll be in the keys. We can go over that real fast. So this is everyone's who has ever collected a Tidewater Goby that I know of has a code. These green, red pertain to the presence absence. So that's like what's over here, green, red. There's some, jumping a little bit around, but yellow, right? So yellow means unverified or potential introduction locality. So those are sites that we've either never been verified that it's a Goby or that we have identified as possible, a critical habitat. And then blue is present and absent, like I mentioned before. So that would be in this tab. So that's what blue is, okay? And then this is like the population status. So absent would be 0. These are kind of numbers I just did broadly. But sometimes there's surveyors, and I do this a lot as well, where it's just like, oh, Tidewater Gobies were abundant or Tidewater Gobies were rare. And so I just kind of put a number to those categories because a lot of times we don't actually have real numbers. So that's what that is. Age class, there's a, this is somewhat new. It's there'll be a lot of blank spaces, and that's okay. We just want to try to get as much data that is in these reports into the database, and these are kind of the common things that I've seen. So age class, larvae, juvenile, subadult, adult, other, or all age classes. Collection season, winter, fall, spring, summer. I'll add maybe months for those. And then collection method, SANE, eDNA, DIP, traps, visual, other, okay? So there's those keys. Everything else is numeric or it should be self-explanatory. So total number of SANE halls, we want to clean this up. So, this says low abundance, it should just be low. We just want to make sure everything's universal and there's no extra pluses, minuses, or characters that would prevent any model or stats to cancel out some of the data. Half grown. This is all stuff that was put in, which is okay before I even made this or actually had a key for it. So we'll just have to change that. And then detection probability, I'll go through and calculate once we have all the total number of SANE halls and the SANEs in it. We'll just do a quick calculation on there. The other thing is, it's not important, but I just saved this in here because I think there was a lot of data. Dan, I think, went through and did a lot of this of basic water quality. I think a lot of people would think that's important. So for those of you who have seen the database before, there's nothing after this. So I had a list of every possible reptile, amphibian, native fish, invasive fish, invertebrates, plants. It was really large, just presence, absence. We're not going to include that with this database, but this is all stuff that has to do with habitat characteristics. So it's really just the only physical data that we're going to do now is whether the mouth is open or closed, if it's reported. And then this is all water quality. So and everyone does water quality different. Sometimes there's numerous temps throughout like an entire system. So I think what we'll do is you find like a low temp, a high temp, average temp. Same thing with salinity. I think salinity and temp are really the common ones. I kept DO. There's two different types of DO, percent and milligrams per liter, and then pH conductivity. Conductivity is essentially salinity, but sometimes people do conductivity or the fancier water quality probes do conductivity rather than salinity. So we'll keep it on there for now. We might just get rid of it later, but that is the data set. So we need to kind of go through and make sure everything's in here that we think. So if I send you this and you're a surveyor and you've collected Tidewater gobies in the past, then it would be really great if you can help us go through and just make sure all of your records are in here. If they're not, you know, say like you did a site at Calegas Creek and it's not in here, then you can go through and start adding them to the bottom. And what I end up doing, since we want all this to be the same, basically from the site, you can just copy paste. So these Latin longs, I should say this, the Latin longs are universal for all sites. So these aren't actually specific lat longs where fish were collected or surveyed. These are just general points that we put at the mouth of each lagoon as like a, you know, site locator. So these aren't specific. I think that's important actually when we're publishing this, that we make it clear that these actually aren't the exact sites where Tidewater gobies are found for safety purposes, but these are just the mouth of the systems that they're found in, which is usually where their Tidewater gobies are found, but we'll make that clear. So say you just want to do another Biona one, you can pretty much copy and paste all of this blue section, right? And I'll just do this down here so I don't add it. You can add that and then go in and update your records. What date, what collection method. It's okay if you don't have everything in here. I think the most important things are date and, you know, put your initials in and whether the gobies were present and absent. If you have seine hauls, number of gobies, any of that kind of stuff, you know, try to fill in as much as you can. Water quality would be awesome. But it's really, you know, this is a occupancy data set. And so we really want to know who was out when and whether gobies were present or absent, and who did it, you know, who surveyor did it. And even if there's, if you're not sure if it's like a service, you know, it's a National Parks report or U.S. Fish and Wildlife report, but you're not sure who the surveyor was, that's fine. There's, you know, you can go down here and you know, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, they have a code. So you can just put general stuff in there as well. Okay. So that would be a huge help. I'll delete that LA Ventura while I'm thinking about it, but we'll just, instead of adding them in, like, you know, say you think you might have one that was between 1982 and 1986, don't add a column in the middle because they'll kind of throw everything off. Just add stuff on the bottom here separately so we know they're kind of new entries, and then I'll go through and clean that up. Make sure there's no double entries. That's an important thing to go through too when you're looking. Make sure there's no double entries. And yeah, I think we have a good amount of the data in there, but I definitely think there's stuff missing, especially for the North Coast and the Greater Bay unit. I think those are really the two sites that I don't get a lot of updated reports. So that would be helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. And thank you for your help.